Yes, now we can hear you.
Yeah. Good evening, madam. Good evening, sir.
Good
Good
evening. Good
evening.
evening.
Professor Thakur. Yeah.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Uh, Professor Alamla, can you also put on your video?
Yeah,
Or is that possible?
network is so poor.
Yeah, okay,
Can
anyway,
you see
we can
me?
see you now. Yes, yes, we can see you. So I think it's time. Actually, in the beginning, there was some issue with the network at the host site. Mr. Lawrence is hosting, and he was having some network problem. But now I think it's resolved, and now we have 200 near about 250 participants already. So I think we can start.
Yeah.
And we have to, and I think Professor Thakur as well as Mr. Robbins' audio is also working now. So can we start?
Yes, ma'am. Go
Okay,
ahead.
madam.
Okay. So first of all, I want to welcome everyone to this program. It was in such a short notice, but then we're very glad that we finally could organize this program to commemorate our 75 years of independence. And here, it's just to mark the beginning of the 75 days leading to the celebration on 15th August. So I think it's a very befitting day when our Honorable Prime Minister has inaugurated it, and our university also want to be a part of it by organizing this talk. And we're very fortunate to have with us two prominent historians, and we're going to listen to them. And so for the benefit of our students, actually most of them are our students. For the information to our resource person, um, they are students from BSc, MSc, and PhD. And actually, there are some of the batches who are having an exam, but I'm sure that most of the students have already joined here to listen to your lecture. So we got an instruction from UGC and also from our Honorable Vice Chancellor to organize this program. And therefore, we are here today to organize a talk on India's struggle for freedom. And as I said, we're very fortunate to have two prominent persons with us. And I would like to give them the full time to talk about it, because we are basically not a historian. We all know about our Independence Day, but then we don't know much about the way our historian knows the things. So we are all eager to hear from you about the our struggle for freedom. And therefore, I would like to first of all give time to Professor A.K. Thakur. And he's a professor and a former head in the Department of History, and he's from Northeast Hill University. And he was earlier the General Secretary of the Northeast India History Association. He was also the president of the Arunachal Pradesh College Teachers Association. He is an executive committee member of the Indian History Congress, and he specializes in history of Eastern and medieval India. And I think his interest lies in the history of Northeast India. He has so much publication to his credit, more than 100 research papers, and authored about 5 books. So he's a very learned person and a very experienced historian among us, and he's going to give us the first lecture. And without giving taking much of their time, I would like to give him the time. We are very also happy to introduce our Pro Vice Chancellor, who is here, Professor Alamanla, and she will be giving the closing remarks. So since she told me to start with the opening remarks, so I'm just doing the honors. But we are very happy that our Pro Vice Chancellor is also here with us. So Professor Alamla, you have seen her. So with this, I think we can start. And over to you, Professor A.K. Thakur.
So thank you, all Nagaland University and all friends for giving me this opportunity. Uh, and I, as given the title of my lecture is Freedom Movement in Northeast India and the Looming Presence of Gandhiji. Here Gandhiji means Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, all we know. My lecture is having three parts. One part is largely how we students of history see Gandhian movement and the evolution of Gandhian philosophy, Gandhian action. So first part of my lecture is centered on that. And second part of the lecture starts with the assumption that how Mahatma Gandhi, from that political, cultural, or economic influence, Mahatma Gandhi entered into public space, public memory. That's why I have given the title of the presentation. Honestly speaking, I was struggling little bit yesterday evening. Then my daughter suggested that better you give looming presence. So thanks to her for suggesting the appropriate adjective regarding Gandhian presence. So because from that political reality, Mahatma Gandhi entered into public reality, myth, in folklore of Arunachal Pradesh, and Gandhi also entered into the myth or public perception about Jadonang and Rani Gaidelu. So that dimension will come as the second part of the discussion. And the third part of the discussion is centered about how Gandhiji, and honestly speaking, this third part and second part of my presentation here is just to encourage some young researchers and young colleagues to venture into this dimension, because in Northeast India, this dimension is very, very less studied. Because other parts of India and the world, this dimension on Gandhi and that is studied. But in Northeast India, it is very less studied. And that is how Mahatma Gandhi was present in the newspapers, magazines, and journals of Northeast India. How Gandhian presence was felt in both English language newspapers, journals, magazines, as well as vernacular. And I must admit here that, as I told, the title of the paper, yesterday evening I was struggling and my daughter helped me in giving this adjective, looming presence. Two of my research scholars who are working with me in Northeastern Hill University Department of History. Grace Fullness Boni and Kristin Milhengup. While discussing with them, Grace she is working on press journalism in Meghalaya. So she is collecting both English newspapers as well as vernacular newspapers. So she has, and Kristin, both of them have been helpful to me when I approached them yesterday. Please send me a few paragraphs of vernacular newspaper. My honestly speaking, why I joined, and when yesterday morning Madam Akali Sema approached me with very reluctance, I said, okay, I will join. Because these are the two areas, the last two areas of my presentation, which is very less studied in Northeast India. That how Mahatma Gandhi traveled from political reality into cultural reality, myth, how this looming presence was felt in society in Arunachal, in Nagaland, in other parts of in Northeast India, and how that presence is felt in newspapers of this region. Region means Northeast India. So these two areas are least researched in Northeast India. That's why if some young friends doing MPhil or doing post-graduation, if they are interested, they can specifically look into Gandhi and newspapers in Northeast India. And I assure that will be a very, very good research work. Not only one, there can be several work on Gandhi consciousness, praise, keeping Mahatma Gandhi into center or focus. So with this background, thanking the Nagaland University Department of History, other friends, participants, that generally historians agree that Gandhian method of socio-political change due inspiration. And the inspiration came largely from Gandhian method or Gandhian strategy that was of truth, satya, non-violence, ahimsa, satyagraha, insistence of truth, and non-cooperation, asahayog. That if you don't agree, I will not cooperate with you. So these were the initial. And what Gandhi experimented with this, the life of Gandhi was always a life of an experiment. And his autobiography is named as Experiment with Truth. So all this came, his book came in 1909. The title of the book is Hind Swaraj. And Gandhian economy, Gandhian polity, Gandhian culture, all these, all these developed from the book Hindu Swaraj. And Gandhi was anxious to impress upon the Indians that modern civilization posed a great threat to them than colonialism. Because Gandhi was, there is a dilemma in the beginning of Gandhi's moves. Modern civilization, Gandhiji was thinking that India took it granted that modern civilization was an unmixed blessings and colonialism as unmixed evil forgetting that colonialism itself was a product of modern civilization. So Gandhiji was modern civilization, colonialism, that dimension Gandhiji started looking into. And if we see Hind Swaraj, there is a good debate in Hind Swaraj. And I request my students, friends, even others, that to understand India, to understand freedom movement of India, at least please read two books. Students, those who have not read, please read Hind Swaraj by Mahatma Gandhi and Discovery of India by Nehru. Then that dimension will emerge. The Gandhi Hind Swaraj will give you the changes and what India was historically. That dimension will emerge from Discovery of India. So the key to understand Hind Swaraj lies in the fact that worldly pursuits should give way to ethical living. Gandhi always insisted on this. Through this book, through this work, Gandhi desired to give Indians a practical philosophy, an updated concept of dharma that would fit them for life in the modern world. Here, dharma is not the dharma of Gandhi, which is ritualism, going to temple or church or mosque or gurdwara. No, dharma is dharyate iti dharma. The religion what we have adopted, religion of truth, religion of non-violence, religion of satya. So, Gandhian model is a unique one, and in the sense that is sought to use age-old cultural resources to regenerate Indianness among Indians and humanness among human beings. There is two dimension of it. My request is, friends, just understand it. Gandhian notion of nation, nationalism is one, and Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, Bengal election is there, Tagore is being coming into discussion again and again and coming as the get-up also. So my point is, the nationalism of Rabindranath Tagore, nationalism of Gandhi differed. We are different. Tagore always considered as humanness, humanism, beyond nationalism. Mahatma Gandhi has the element of humanism, but nationalism was the one which was important. So this Mahatma Gandhi's program is one philosophy of the modern period which draws upon the entire fabric of India's heritage. And how India's heritage Mahatma Gandhi interprets? Spiritual, socio-psychological, and Mahatma Gandhi even brings sexual approach into picture. And this Indian heritage, if we have to understand the best, I will prescribe young friends to read both Discovery of India as well as Hind Swaraj, because the dichotomy between the Indian past and modern colonial approach is coming there. So, with this broad development of Gandhian philosophy, how Hind Swaraj shaped Gandhian view, subsequently Mahatma Gandhi published at his own a number of journals and magazines and writings, Navjivan, Harijan, and other, and his philosophy were developing always. So that dimension comes. When it comes to the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, and when we try to analyze how Gandhian influence or impact can be seen in Northeast India. Here is very, very historical reconstruction on scientific and secular lines. Because in Northeast India, we cannot say that the past was dominated by quote unquote this religion, that religion. We were following diverse, and anywhere, if we see, there was no the one religion dictating. No. So this kind of secular line and free from biases, when we see the approach, three aspects are highlighted by H.J.N. Horsburgh. And he rightly suggests three conditions for the success of Gandhian model. And when we analyze these three conditions, perhaps Northeast India is the best place where we can say that Gandhian method can be adopted, implemented easily, and the success can be seen, tested here. The first condition is a community must have very, I quote, I am quoting here, a community must have very substantial progress towards the realization of social justice. If we see pre-modern Northeast India, jhum cultivation, trade, there was social justice. No villager was too rich and no villager was too poor to survive. So the concept of social justice was there. It must also have achieved an extremely high level of social discipline. Social discipline was there, or still we have better social discipline. Village headman, village elders, community elders, clan elders, their role, their influence in Northeast India is really important. So this one is social justice, second is social discipline, and the third is the social discipline to which it has attained must not depend in any large measure upon the use of traditional method of law enforcement. And gradually what is happening with social justice, social discipline, gradually we are moving towards modern legal system, modern administration, and gradually we are of the view that is gradual changes according to time and spirit we are taking place. So Northeast India in a way is in a far better position to have this Gandhian method and Gandhian model to discuss or to have. It is in general misconception that Gandhi's programs and policies has nothing to do with Northeast India. No. Gandhiji visited very few times Northeast India. Yes, but on political front, Gandhian influence in other parts of Northeast India, including Assam and other places, political influence and direct influence in Silchar, direct influence in Barak Surma Valley and other places we have seen. And I will cite an example here that for the plantation workers of Assam, freedom meant the right to move freely and to retain a link with their villages. Because all you know, most of these tea garden laborers were brought from other parts of India. The moment they agreed into or they joined on the basis of the agreement, They were put into the tea estate, and they were not allowed any kind of freedom or any kind of movement. So tea garden laborers wanted right to move freely and to retain a link with their villages. Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Eastern UP, Orissa, West Bengal, like that. Under the Inland Immigration Act of 1859, they had been prohibited to do so. When they heard of the non-cooperation movement, First World War, after First World War, 1921-22, all you know better than me, under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, they defied the authority. The tea garden laborers defied the authorities and headed towards their home. We will go home. And they believed Gandhi Raj was coming. So in the beginning of the 20th century, just after whole partition of Bengal, this took place. So now I will come to the dimension where second aspect, that how Mahatma Gandhi got into the public space from tea garden and political space or tea garden. Now second aspect I will come, because other very learned friend is to speak. So I will come to second dimension, that how Gandhi entered into this, or Gandhian presence is felt. On just I will say the two. The movement led by Sri Jadonang, and Sri Jadonang was one, and the successor, Rani or Rani Gaidelu. Directly, the looming presence of Mahatma Gandhi is felt in their movement, and they are said that they had the element of Gandhian influence, like Gandhi, who cannot be inside the jail. Rani Gaidelu, the moment she believes she can be out of the jail. The concept of here, myth emerged that, like, Krishna helped to break the prison to make free. Gandhi can do that, Rani Gaidelu can do that. And in some of the myth, even it emerged that Rani Gaidelu is the daughter of Mahatma Gandhi. Some myth also signals or signal in that direction. Though Mahatma Gandhi never visited Arunachal Pradesh, but Gandhian influence and Gandhian presence is felt in the villages of Arunachal Pradesh, especially Pasighat, along that area. And while I was in Arunachal Pradesh, I could see women singing during their traditional festivals, and the song is Go Raja Pabona, Gandhi Raja Pabona, Go Raja Pabona, Mikka Saddin Pabona, Go Raja Pabona. The translation goes, as Gandhiji has brought independence to the country, he was the king of the king. It was because of him that we could become the free citizens of a country. The same same very long song is Aye Delhi Mahatma Gandhi, Aye Delhi Mahatma Gandhi. Delhi is itself Mahatma Gandhi, and Gandhi is Delhi, and Delhi is Gandhi. And this kind of looming presence is felt Arunachal, Nagaland, and other parts of Northeast India. And friends, the third aspect of it, I will finish in 5 minutes, and the discussion we can have, there is no issue, that Mahatma Gandhi was not only in the myths, Mahatma Gandhi was not in the songs, Mahatma Gandhi was also seen or having his presence in the, I'm not talking of English newspaper, no. Besides English newspaper, or not only English newspaper, but also in vernacular newspapers. And I can give you example from few Khasi vernacular newspapers. As I told you, my direct research scholar, she is working on press in Meghalaya, and she is kind enough to share with me. And this kind of similar researches can be in other parts of Northeast India. Vernacular newspaper and English newspapers, how they perceived Gandhi, how they perceived freedom movement at that point of time. So that will be a very good research, which I started in the beginning of the lecture, that young students can take up these things, and that will be real contribution. That Satyagraha, as it comes, we all know, and Gandhi implied these forms of a struggle during freedom movement. And Mahatma Gandhi said once, for me, non-violence is not a mere philosophical principle, it is the rule and breadth of my life. Rule and breathe of my life. A Khasi newspaper, one of the Khasi newspapers, U Non Pirta, was extensively writing on Mahatma Gandhi. And in the 1920s and 21, a number of articles emerged on Mahatma Gandhi, and there, and he was well represented about Mopla rebellion and about non-cooperation movement. And even Mahatma Gandhi and Indian National Congress in Khasi vernacular, the Indian National Congress annual meeting of 1921, which was held in Ahmedabad, was reported in Khasi vernacular, and it has a long articles into a number of vernacular newspapers. And the mission in another Khasi newspaper, Ka Pateng Kristan, it writes about the subsequently another dimension of Cripps mission and Gandhian influence. Even Second World War, Indian National Army, Subhash Chandra Bose, those things are also extensively reported, not only in English newspaper, I am repeating it, friends, but also in vernacular newspaper. And Gandhi paid serious attention and to realize the Swaraj. And another, the Eastern Mirror, a newspaper from Nagaland, has reported long back on Gandhi also. So just I am giving a hint that how other states and other newspapers have reported Mahatma Gandhi. And a Naga leader on 19th July 1947 in Bhangi Colony, Delhi, where he said, Gandhi has reported and talked about Nagas, has talked about other people of Northeast India. So the Gandhian perception or Gandhian presence, looming presence, better to say, not only political influence, not only Gandhian movement and influence in Northeast India, but how Gandhi moved into the myth, how Mahatma Gandhi moved into the public perception, and second dimension, how Mahatma Gandhi and freedom movement was perceived and reported in English and vernacular newspapers in Northeast India. Friends, we should look into it. With this, I close my presentation. And perhaps I have not taken much time, around 20-25 minutes. If I have exceeded, I am sorry for that, but hope not exceeded much. I had a few more examples to give, but we will cut short, no problem.
Thank you so much, sir. You have elaborated a lot on the presence of our father of the nation in our region, and all of us, I mean, many of us are ignorant about so many things, and we were all aware that he is a father of the nation, but then the presence and how so many things that you have highlighted about his presence in the Northeast has enlightened us. And thank you so much, sir. Actually, because we have another speaker, that's why the time is a little short for you, I guess. But then after the second speaker, if we have the time, then we will give both of you some few minutes to wind it up. So thank you so much, sir. And we hope that you'll stay till the last year. We have another eminent historian with us. He's Mr. Robin Temse, who is the head and assistant professor in the Department of History, Sezole College in Zosama. He was a research scholar of JNU New Delhi, and he has done his MPhil in modern history from JNU. He holds a double MA degree in history, medieval and modern Indian history. I think he has also a wide experience in the Northeast history, and today he's here to give us a lecture on interpreting India, a contested space, identity, and the fight for freedom. So I give you the time, Mr. Robin Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you a little.
Louder, please.
I think bad network, but it's okay.
Can I share a slide?
Yes, why not?
Yes, sure, please. In the meantime, while you are sharing the screen, I request.
Can you see the slides, madam? No.
Mr. Robin, we can't see your screen yet. Lawrence.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see his screen?
No, ma'am, no.
I think he has lost his network or what? And Lawrence, can you just identify the CR and upgrade them? Will it be possible to panelists?
Yeah, ma'am, if they can raise their hand, I can just.
I request all the CR of different classes to raise their hands so that Lawrence can upgrade you.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah. we can.
Am I audible?
Are you trying to log in through Gaurav Dubai?
Yes, ma'am. This is Gaurav Dubey, PhD scholar.
Okay. Oh, okay. I thought Mr. Robin is trying to log in through this. Okay. I think Mr. Robin is having some network issues, so please bear with us. I believe these are CR, right? Gaurav Dubai, Vibeto, and Molo Chingmak.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
CR
I'm
of the class, right? Ivani Kumar, Longcomer. Okay. And Vindia. All right. So now I hope you can see the participants. Actually, the resource person, I mean, the next speaker is trying to log in. There's some issue with his network. That's why, nothing is audible from his side. Lawrence, can you also upgrade Professor Nizamuddin, please?
Hello, madam.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, Robin, yes. Finally,
Yes,
you're here.
so sorry. I don't know what is happening today. Suddenly.
It's all right. Now you can go ahead. For information to all, this is also live streamed in the YouTube channel. Maybe if your network doesn't permit, then you can just start speaking, even if you can't share your screen.
Okay, that's what I'll do, madam.
Okay.
So sorry for the network. Thank you, Professor Madam Akali Sema. Thank you, Sir Professor Thakur, for this insightful into the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you, Professor Alamla Au. Thank you for this great opportunity to come and share about India's struggle for freedom. I'm a little bit scared in front of esteemed professors who are very well learned. And I also could not say no to Professor Band, who, can you hear me? Can you hear?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. So I took this opportunity to come and share about India's struggle for independence. And I've chosen a specific topic that is interpreting India, a contested space, identity, and the fight for freedom. I have also prepared this small talk, keeping in mind the students. So it'll be not a very in-depth look into the topic that I've given, but also keeping in mind the students who are listening to this lecture, who most probably does not have any history background. And like me, when I started my journey, in fact, I hated history. Only in my university, I had excellent professors who taught me how to love history, and I want to ignite that passion in our students. Also, giving a cursory glance into the topic that I want to share. One thing that my professor in the university shared that really kept me thinking is that history at the younger level is taught in terms of personalities, Akbar the Great, Alexander the Great, and so on and so forth. And in the middle level, history is taught in terms of events, why the First World War was fought and so on and so forth. But history at a higher level is taught in terms of ideas. And ideas are powerful. And ideas have consequences. And ideas in history is very important because history today is a battleground. And as we look at history, we can see in what ways it has become a battleground. And even as we celebrate 75th year of India's independence, I think it is good for us to reflect back. What are some of the ideas that were debated? What are some of the things that was discussed? How did historians interpret India? What was their take on India? And this is very important for us to look at these ideas that were debated, that were mooted, and of course that were challenged as India, went towards progress and went towards the struggle for freedom. In a brief way, I want us to look at two views. One is the Western view, and one is the Indian view. I don't want to be very specific, so I'm taking this very broad because in the Indian view, there are so many other things that we can look at, but we are not looking at this. But I want us to look at this broad theme, how the history of India has been interpreted by colonial Britain, and how the Indian scholars contested for the space. How did they write the history about India? Because it was very crucial in India's developing an identity. It is very important that India engage with the Western scholars who came with this grand scheme of this imperialist and colonial baggages that started with Portugal, Spain in the 15th century, lasting till 16th, and in the 17th, Britain, France taking over. So when they came to India, how did they write the history about India? What was their idea about India? I think it's very important for us to look at this as we go on. I will share this a little bit briefly, the first part, and then how did India historians, they responded to it, and then third, some conceptual questions that we can look at, some interrogation that is still going on, so broad thing. So I just want to touch a little bit of this as we look at this theme that I'm going to share today. There were three areas that the Western, viewed about India. One was this Orientalist representations of India. And in this Orientalist representation, they promoted the superiority of Western civilization. And this idea was brought into prominence by Edward Said and so on and so forth. But the whole idea was they made India look inferior. In fact, they said India was inferior. And the other, portrayal of India was that India had no unity until Britain unified the country, and that the 18th century India was in the Dark Age, or 18th century was a dark century in India, full of chaos and barbarity, and chaos until Britain came to the rescue. This Western writers also, adopted what is known as social Darwinism in their approach and notions about India. That is, if history is a struggle between various people as well as culture, akin to the struggle among species, then Britain, having come to the top, could be ipso facto legitimately considered to be superior, and hence, the fittest to rule India. And another picture that the Western, painted about India was that India was portrayed as a stagnant society, arrested development, and only Britain could show the path of progress. So hence, India needed Pax Britannica. So the whole, the essence of the history that was written during that part was an ideological effort by the Western writers to appropriate history as a means of establishing cultural hegemony and legitimacy of British rule in India. And the other thing they said was, look, India is politically unstable. India had no unity. We came and gave India unity. We gave you civilization. We gave you governance. And you did not have political unity. Henceforth, you also did not have any economic, progress. You had low economy. Agriculture was, low production. Majority of the land was not cultivated, and technology was insignificant. So there was a continuous attempt by these Western scholars to portray India as backward, and to India was good for the people of India. In countering this Western view, great scholars like R.C. Dutt, Dadabhai Naoroji, they, for the first time, they came out with this explanations or counter to the argument that was given by this colonial historians or writers that portrayed India in a very bad light. And for the first time, they gave evidences of how Britain systematically exploited, not only politically, but also economically. They propounded what is known as the, economic, aspects of nationalism, which is also called economic nationalism. The interpretations of Indian history from economic perspective, and how Britain or British rule of India is detrimental for India economically. And they traced it in 3 stages. R.C. Dutt, in his very influential book, for the first time laid down the policies of colonial Britain, how they systematically colonized India in 3 stages of mercantilism that lasted from 1757, when they first captured Bengal, till 1813, and from 1813 till the revolt of 1857, the industrial period, and then from 1857 till 1947, during when India was under the British Parliament, when India was known as British India, how during that phase, that financial phase, they exploited India. So all the various policy that they introduced in India was for the benefit of Britain. And these Indian nationalist historians, for the first time, they were able to counter the argument, give solid argument, and write a history from the perspective of India. And this played a very crucial role in India's fight for freedom, because they laid down the groundwork. They talked about the drain of wealth, how Britain drained India's of its wealth, for which India got nothing back in return. And they cited deindustrialization, how India was the workshop of the world, but how Britain came and destroyed Indian cotton industries, handicraft. And all these arguments that the nationalists gave really helped in formulations of an idea that helped India build, upon which India could build an ideological basis for its fight for freedom. And even as we celebrate this 75th year of India's freedom, I think it is good to look back, things that has taken place in history. And even as I was looking at this, I was so thankful that Sir brought out about Gandhi, because the whole Indian national movement, India's freedom struggle can be divided into 3 periods. The first period, the moderates from 1885 till 1905, the partition of Bengal, then followed by the extremists from 1905 till 1917, and from 1917 till 1947, which is known as the Gandhian era. The first, part of Indian national movement was basically, Indian middle class, educated in Western, opinion, thoughts, and so on and so forth. They would write petitions asking the British government, to give them certain rights. And basically, they were a group of, Indians. Later on, of course, they changed the stance, but they never asked British to leave India. But in fact, they thought, that British rule was good for India. And everything changed because we see the doctrine of lapse, the subsidiary alliance, and things that the British introduced in India, and that was detrimental, and that had a very negative effect on India. And this things changed when India, basically Bengal was partitioned in 1905, and that was this revolutionary period when Indian, people took up arms to fight for its freedom. And then, come a very special period from 1917 after the Rowlatt Act, the Jallianwala Bagh, and so on and so forth. A time came when Gandhiji came into the scene. We have this constitutional form of protest, and then we have this taking arms, fighting for freedom. We have this gentleman, Mahatma, given the name the great soul by Rabindranath Tagore. He came into the scene and he changed the whole, process of fighting for its right. As Sir has mentioned about satyagraha, the insistence of truth through non-violence. When I was in the university, I had a very interesting experience. One of the German scholars who came was studying in the university. He had to, we were interacting, and he had to say this, is it? And he asked this question: when I go out, in the park, I see Gandhi. When I go to a movie, I see Gandhiji, in the movie, before the movie starts. Wherever I go, there's Gandhi. As Sir was mentioning, it's just in the songs. But he said, but why Gandhi is not in your head? And it made us reflect in the university, we may be studying a lot of things, about Gandhi, but, we cannot say, even if we say more, I think is still going to be less. And the contribution that Gandhiji has made in India's fight for freedom through non-violence has been the yardstick even now, everywhere. And, and Gandhiji as a social reformer, as a political activist, he was also an economist who had his view on economy. And I think it's good to hear about Gandhiji's and his influence in the Northeast. Coming back to the third section, I was just beginning to ask this question. Now, 75 years of independence, we have seen what has happened, how history has been fought in terms of ideas, how Indian history has been interpreted by different scholars, and how India was able to build an identity, how historians, intellectuals came and they woven a picture of India based on historical evidences, and was able to lay the groundwork for the fight for India's independence. And, the credit goes to Gandhi and so on and so forth. But as I was looking at this, one book came to my mind, which we did in the university, is a book written by Aloysius, which is called Nationalism Without a Nation. nation without nationalism, Aloysius. And one of the theses of the book was, now that Britain is away from the picture, India has become a nation. Britain has, the common enemy of India, now that he's out of picture. But now that we are a nation, we have become a nation, the thesis of the book is, but there is no nationalism. And he points to India as a fractured community fighting on the basis of caste, on religion and region and so on and so forth. And I thought this is important even as we celebrate this 75th year. Yes, we have come a long way, but we can even look at how these aspects of the reality that we can have a nations without nationalism. And the whole aspects of decolonizations that we can think and talk about, how most of the countries that was under colonial rule became independent, and we are still struggling to decolonize our history, decolonize our literature, as well as being able to interpret our history, culture from history from below. And with this small talk on the topic, I would like to give the rest of the time to our Madam Akali, and if there's a question, we can take later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Robin. Actually, the network was not so good, I think, from your side, or I don't know. So sometimes your voice has cracked. Otherwise, a lot of the important points and very interesting points was, told by you. I wish we could have heard it, everything, all the words that you have spoken.
So sorry, madam.
I'm sure, I hope that some of the students, with this network also, I hope that they have been able to hear most of the things. I think such an interesting, a thing that you have said, that many of us, history is one subject that we haven't really found an interest in the past. But like you said, I think some of your teachers have made you also interested in history, and I think your lecture had made a lot of interesting, remarks, and we wish we could have heard you more clearly, but unfortunately, the network
So sorry,
was
madam.
a little bad. But many of the points, we have already heard it. So thank you so much. That was such a interesting topic. And now I don't know if our students, because as our earlier speaker also said that most of the students, our students are all agriculture students, and
Yeah.
history has not been, we're not very conversant. So in fact, it's new for us, many of the things. So I don't know if they have anything to inquire. I told them to put in the chat box or in the question answer box, but I haven't seen any till now. But if there's any, actually there were two raised hand earlier, but since I didn't want to interrupt the speaker, so I didn't give them time. But if they are still here and they would like to ask question, you're welcome. You can Lawrence, if you can see them, then you can give them time. The one that they're raising hand earlier. Lawrence, can you see them?
Not now, ma'am.
Okay, I think they have taken back their hands because they were raising hands, and I wasn't able to give them time because the speaker was still speaking. So that's why. Anyway, I think since there are no questions coming, if there is anything that Professor Thakur, I think your time was maybe cut a little short. If you have something to add upon before we give time to our Pro Vice Chancellor, you may take a few minutes. Sir, you have to unmute yourself first.
These are the areas which are still not researched in Northeast India, especially how Gandhi in perception, how Gandhi in myth, and what was the reflection of Gandhi, or how Gandhiji was, his presence was felt, and how we can measure it, how we can evaluate or describe or analyze is by looking into newspapers. How Gandhi ji emerged in the rationality. So these two areas, political movement of Mahatma Gandhi, his influence, enough. But this kind of researches are still not undertaken in Northeast India. So my point is only that, to emphasize upon what I was telling. And we have a number of newspapers which used to report about Gandhiji and Gandhian movement, Gandhi's life. So only that much to add here, and nothing more.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir,
yeah.
Professor Thakur. I have not met you, but I've heard a lot about you.
Oh, so nice
Some of
of
the
you. Thank
faculty
you.
members, they said they attended the the refreshers course in Nehu,
Okay,
and they said
okay.
how you are an expert on Arunachal. So they warned me. So I'm humbled to share the
No,
stage
no,
with you,
no. We
and I have
all
a
are
lot to
friends.
learn. I'm still I'm
We all
still
are friends.
young. Yeah, so it's wonderful to share. Yeah.
So nice to have the good words from refresher course and orientation course participants about me. Nice to hear this. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Robin, it's always wonderful to share a platform, with eminent personalities. We get also inspired.
Yes, madam.
And I think it's wonderful
Yes,
because
madam.
when you're young and then you get such an opportunity, I think it's really, really inspiring. So I'm glad that I'm
Yes.
able to bring a young and prominent person, together and share the same space here. So now I think, do you want to say a few things before I give time to our Pro Vice Chancellor?
Ma'am, we have one student. I think he wants
Your
to ask
voice
some
is
question.
actually not very audible. Who?
I think we have one student, Gaurav.
Good evening to my
Okay.
honorable
Yeah,
professors.
please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening to all my honorable professors, and I'm listening everything. And I have just listened the lecture of Mr. Robin Tamsu sir, and he has explained so well and covered all the freedom movement so warmly. But after listening all this, I want to ask only a simple question. Though we can figure this out, we can know by own self, but still I am asking that why it took almost 200 years to get freedom from Britain. Okay, if this is very simple question, but if we have to highlight that why it, what could be the reason, what would be the reason to that it took almost 200 years to get freedom from Britain?
I think the question is very simple, so I think Sir Thakur will answer.
Yes.
I think, yeah, sir, you can answer then maybe. Yeah.
Thank you. The level of national consciousness, because 1757 Battle of Plassey, Buxar, colonial expansion took place almost in 75 to 80 years. One part of India to another part of India from Bengal started Mysore, Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan by end of 18th century. Assam and Northeast India, beginning of 19th century to 19th century, Naga Hills or Mizo Hills or this Mizoram means Lusai Hills, different Naga Hills. In the Arunachal, what is today, British expansion reached in the 20th century, Pasighat 1911. So to say that it took 200 years, in fact, first concerted effort was not concerted, but first effort was 1857. And tribal areas, Birsa Munda and other movements slightly before that, because when British started controlling. But the main problem why it took so long, it is not long. In fact, it is one of the early won battle. Because level of consciousness of India among Indians was not similar. Education has not reached. It started from Bengal. People were not realizing what movement is, what independence matter. That's why I am happy that our friend Dr. Gaurav Dubey or Mr. Gaurav Dubey, you are raising the point, because freedom or independence for different people was different meaning. And I will refer you only two films you see. Different freedom and meaning of freedom will be different. You just see Do Bigha Jameen, Mother India, and then you will realize that how freedom was theoretically won, achieved one. To some, one administration was replaced by another administration, but the capitalist and others was gaining strength day by day. So the way we were analyzing, or we are analyzing today freedom, it took time because India had different problems at their own. If you see the debate between Mahatma Gandhi and Ambedkar, Ambedkar wanted everything to be solved with in the presence of the British. Mahatma Gandhi said, no, this is our problem. Let them go. We will solve among ourselves. So different leaders had different approach. Hindu-Muslim question came. I don't want to bring into the picture of role of Hindu Mahasabha or others. That will be contemporary. But right from very beginning, to blame this group or that group, but finally we can say that it was not that long comparison to South Africa and other parts. So to say that British ruled 200 years, only after 1857 or 1826, that political rule started. Forest laws came 1873. Then forests were regulated. Before that, forests were not regulated. We were having our own control over it. So to cut short the discussion, different pools and pressure groups were there. Hindu communal elements were there, Muslim communal elements there, Marxist communists were there, M.N. Rai and others were there. They were looking for, peasant struggle was there. Swami Sahajanand Saraswati, N.G. Ranga, they within the Congress and outside the Congress, they were raising the issue of peasants. 1937, Kisan Sabha was formed. And from there, the movement started for the rights of the peasants. Rights of the peasant, Indians were the landholders, jamindars, feudal lords. So this was not only one battle against the British rule, but the crony, the sympathizers. And my guru, from whom I have learned ABC of research and understanding, VCP Chaudhary. VCP Chaudhary has written a book, so many books, but just one book I will mention. And the title of the book is Imperial Honeymoon with Indian Aristocracy. because British were in honeymoon and Indian aristocracy was supporting, those jamindars were supporting. So that was the problem. Jamindars, good number of them realized that when British rule goes from India, it will be a problem for them to survive, because peasant rights are coming, laborers' rights are coming, and then there will be end of feudalism and so many things. So different pulls and pressures were there, thanks to Mahatma Gandhi, that everybody was listening to him. He may be Ambedkar, he may be Jinnah, he may be Hindu communalists, Muslim communalist, but when Mahatma Gandhi was there, everybody was listening to him. He has such a big stature. So level of consciousness was not at that point that we can say that whole India was united. Even in 1857, Mopla rebellion was taking place in Deccan, but similar movements or similar rebellion against feudal lords and against British rule was not combining in northern India. Swami Sahajanand Saraswati organized peasants, but other parts of India, those indigenous or Indian powers who were having relation with the British, they were not allowing to happen. So not very simple to say that it took 200 years. Level of consciousness is one, if I am to say one, that whole India level of consciousness was not. Even today, literacy rate, per capita income, child mortality is not same in India. All the states are having ups and downs. Even we have seen the testing in COVID. Perhaps Bihar did the worst. I am not very sure, but we have seen that one mobile number is for 100 or 50 persons, those whose tests have been conducted. It came in Indian Express. So a level of consciousness we have to see into this from my side. That may be one of the answers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Robin, you want to add something more, or?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Thakur, for rescuing me. But just to add to this, if you look at Southeast Asia, Indonesia, it took about 350 years before it became independent, country. So we can even juxtapose and find out, and sometimes it's good. And as Sir has mentioned, I was also enlightened of the the nuances that is there in such a vast country as India. And when I talk about Gandhi, I just think of his khadi. Gandhiji also gave a lot of views on economy, and his introduction of khadi in order to fight against colonial Britain, one scholar said, is a stroke of genius. And for the first time, intellectuals could understand what Gandhiji is doing, and even a farmer, a peasant could understand what Gandhiji was doing. And no wonder the chakra came to be embedded, in our currency and so on and so forth. Just to add to this.
Thank you so much. And I hope, Mr. Gaurav, I hope you got your answers. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the answers as well. Now I give time to Professor Alamullah, Pro Vice Chancellor, to give a closing remark. Professor Alamullah. I hope her network is also working because everybody's network has problem. Professor Alamla? Lawrence, Professor Alamla is there.
No, ma'am. She's not active now. Yeah. Ma'am, we have one more question in this question and answer box.
Oh, yeah. While waiting for her, our resource person can take the question. Would it be right to say that the colonial rule had both negative and positive impact on India? Because some historians say British owe reparations to India, but honestly, I believe modern India today now is because of British, from the constitution to capitalist country. Would you comment, sir?
See, when British rule is here, automatically it depends upon our interpretation, how we interpret. But negative, positives, both were there. When we see rise of economic nationalism by Vipin Chandra, rise and growth of economic nationalism, and when we see another book, social background of Indian nationalism, the answer lies there, that how railway, which was created to exploit the natural resources of India to Britain, how the movement of limited army from one part of country India to another part of India can be done. But the same railway ignited Indians during freedom movement, and freedom fighters or leaders could travel India from this corner to other part of India. Mahatma Gandhi visited Champaran in Bihar. Railway played a role, and leaders started moving in the train, interacting with people, and on railway platform they were greeted by the supporters. So to say that capitalism came to India only under British is not true. Even before the British rule, during medieval period, I will tell you, a number of developments were leading towards capitalism. Like earlier, demand draft or bank draft was in circulation. Banks, still sometimes demand draft is done. There were a number of trading houses in Calcutta, on the sea route, in Gujarat and other places of India, that people were not traveling with money. The traders in Calcutta will issue a hundi, and that hundi will be considered in Gujarat, and the Gujarat trader will issue a hundi that will be accepted in Bengal. So that type of system had started. Only I can tell you with my researches on Northeast India, already developments were there where center formation or political culture, economic center, cultural center were developing in Northeast India. But those centers were changed by the British. The pre-colonial or pre-British centers were changed. So negative, yes, British exploited our wealth, national resources, our handicrafts, traditional industries, deindustrialization took place, permanent settlement, drain of wealth, Dadar Bhai Naurozi's concept. So I'm telling that we cannot deny that English education and modern education, what Macaulay said, to produce clerks, fine. But at least English education came. To some extent, now post-colonial, post-modernist approach everywhere, coming up of missionaries along with British is now being questioned. But the contribution of missionaries through health mission and education mission, we cannot deny. Though they converted, they are writing harvesting. Okay, fine. They converted people. To some extent, now post-colonial writers or post-modernist writers are writing that that was a sheer exploitation of the innocence of the people of India or the third world, Africa and other parts. But can we deny the health mission and education mission of the missionaries? That large scale health consciousness or health mission came, education mission came. So any rule, any administration has both dimension, positives and negatives. And in that positive and negatives, we have to have a balance between it. To me, the economic exploitation, division of India on religion, division of India through census on caste, British design was there, divide and rule. But when we compare British rule, perhaps post-independence India, those vices have not been wiped out even 75 years. Just we see Bengal election, violence is coming. Bihar election, UP election, caste is there. Religion plays a dominant role even in 21st century. So we should see from a rational, balanced view that how British rule, we should not blame always the British. Even 75 years have gone and what we have done. It would not have been if really nation would have come to our policy making, not individual families, individual caste, individual clan, individual religion, things would have been much better. Mr. Robin, he can add to it, but from my side, this is only there.
Okay, thank you. Robin, you want to add something or?
Yeah, during historiography classes, students would often, pose this question. And then one thing that we have agreed was to understand that not everything that the colonial writers wrote was wrong. Not everything that the Indian, scholars wrote was right. So as an historian, we have to be objective. And as Sarah has rightly mentioned, in as well as in everything, we can find merits and demerits. And there are enough literature to help us understand, how India was colonized, how India was destroyed. And as Sarah has rightly mentioned, the India had all the element of becoming a capitalist, in medieval India, the Sharaf and the Hundai that he has mentioned. And I think it helps us to keep this frame in mind, to know that yes, British colonial, rule also has demerits, but also in certain ways it has also led to common good. Like Western education, it was an indirect, benefit. It was never given. If they had known that by giving Western education, they're going to create a class of intellectuals to throw them out of India, probably they could have never. All these are indirect influence, and even railway for military, for state control, as well as plunder of India, and so on and so forth. And of course, railway was never, constructed so that Indians can visit the families or go from one end to another. It was basically laid down for its colonial interests, but indirectly, of course, it benefited India. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I think we have a lot of interaction. So, and Professor Alamullah also now she could join because she was having some network problem. Professor Alamullah, now I would like to request you to give the closing remark.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you so much, Professor Kali, for giving me this time. It was really a very interesting evening for all of us. I hope it is for the students also. and particularly on behalf of Nagaland University, and especially our school, the School of Agricultural Sciences and Rural Development, Mitsifima Kimbas, would like to give our profound thanks and gratitude to our two eminent historians, Sir Professor Thakur and Dr. Ruben Dimse, for giving your valuable time and sharing your expertise, giving an insight of these wonderful deliberations, especially on the freedom movement of our nation, and focusing on the looming presence of Kadichi in northeastern region, and interpreting India, a contested space, identity, and the fight for freedom. In fact, for myself also,
Again, we have lost her.
hello,
Yes, yes, we can hear you now.
hello,
We can hear you now.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes, now
Yeah.
we can hear.
When I would just like to say that when I was in school, I was also not much interested in history. Why? Because to remember the years was it was very difficult for me. But I'm just wondering how, the historians, especially like Sir Thakur, could remember all those years. And one very interesting thing which I learned this evening is that he was talking about the Mahatma Gandhi's visit to the northeastern region. And when he mentioned that, I was really surprised. But then when he started narrating about the Arunachali songs, and then the Mahatma Gandhi's presence in the newspapers, and then in the magazines, and in the
The network is so bad. So again, she's getting lost.
hello.
Yeah, yeah, now we can hear you again.
I'm so sorry. Maybe my internet is like
All
this.
right.
So
Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi was really looming in presence of all of us, because when Sir was narrating all this history, we could imagine him and we could think about the way he fought for the freedom of our nation. So it was really very interesting and refreshing for all of us, especially for agriculture, those people.
Once again. Professor Alamla? Again, her network is going. Mitsupima has a really bad network. So yeah, yes, we can hear you
So
now.
anyway, thank you so much to both of you, Sir Thakur and Dr. Dimse, for giving your valuable time and sharing your expertise with us. And I would also like to thank our students for giving your time and participating in this session. And I would also like to thank the teachers.
Thank you from my side, and all the my personal and all the best regards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think her network is again
Thank you so
gone,
much.
but
Thank you,
humbled.
Mr. Ruben.
Yeah.
We will meet. We will see to it. Thank you.
Yeah,
yeah. We've learned
you,
a
sir.
lot about history today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful experience. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
so
Thank
much,
you,
and
Thank you.
have a lovely evening. And we hope that we have all enlightened ourselves with some, more background about history. Yeah. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you, madam. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.